The air brake hissed, a monstrous sigh of metallic exhaustion, as the 18-wheeler lurched to a halt just shy of the Pennsylvania line, illuminating the crumpled object on the shoulder of Interstate 80. Trucker Mitch Rourke stepped down from his cab, the cold night hitting him like a wall, only to find the object wasn't roadkill. It was a child's teddy bear, pristine and new, resting inches from a smear of dark, arterial blood. A mile back in a rest stop parking lot sat a luxury SUV, running perfectly, unlocked and completely empty, with 4 steaming cups of coffee inside. Mitch Rourke wasn't a hero. He was a guy with 400,000 miles on his rig and a bad habit of drinking coffee past midnight. But the teddy bear, a small, blue, stuffed elephant, felt like a direct challenge. He followed the short blood trail that led from the highway shoulder to the back edge of the rest stop lot, where the lights of a late-model Mercedes GLE were the only sign of life. The SUV, registered to Theodore and Alina Vance of Scarsdale, New York, was a bubble of eerie normalcy in the hostile night. Inside, the climate control was set to a comfortable 72 degrees. The radio was tuned to a classic rock station. In the back seat, 2 high-backed booster seats sat empty, flanking a discarded travel board game. On the console, 4 coffee cups, 2 adult-sized, 2 small, were still letting off wisps of steam. The Vances' Theo, a high-powered finance executive, Alina, a well-known art curator, and their children, Noah 8 and Lily 5, had vanished without a sound. Detective Gina Cortez of the state police was assigned the case, a young investigator with a reputation for stubbornness. She arrived at the scene just before dawn, surveying the tableau with growing unease. "No signs of a struggle, Mitch?" Gina asked, her voice low as she bagged the teddy bear. "None, detective. No broken glass, no scuff marks on the gravel. If a struggle happened, it was somewhere else. This felt like a clean sweep." Gina noted the details. No wallets, no phones, no keys. All personal effects were gone. But the travel documents, passports, and a stack of printed international flight confirmations to Geneva were tucked neatly into the glove box, untouched. They were leaving the country, Gina concluded, tapping the documents. But if they planned to run, why leave the passports? Why leave the car running and unlocked? And why stop a mile back to drop a teddy bear near a spot of blood? The scene was a contradiction. The evidence suggested a flight, the passports, the empty coffee cups on a long drive, but the execution felt like a violent, forced extraction. The investigation quickly established the Vance family's profile. Wealth, status, and no known enemies. Theo Vance, a partner at a private equity firm in Manhattan, was clean. Alina, who curated a gallery in Chelsea, was respected. Gina interviewed the Vances' closest friend, Dr. Philip Hayes, a colleague of Theo's, in the Scarsdale home that now felt like a mausoleum. Theo was under stress, Dr. Hayes admitted, running a hand through his thinning hair. His latest acquisition deal, a tech firm, was massive, hundreds of millions. He was worried about likes, about rivals, about everything. Did he mention anyone threatening him? Gina pressed. No. Just an overwhelming sense of being watched. He kept saying, "There are eyes on the system, Phil, always watching." Gina returned to the evidence. She had the blood sample from the highway shoulder. It was human, and a DNA match came back to Alina Vance. The image of the elegant, reserved art curator, bleeding silently by the roadside, solidified the crime. This wasn't a voluntary disappearance. This was an abduction. And Alina had been hurt. Mitch Rourke, unable to shake the image of the teddy bear, had offered to help Gina. He was an observer, a civilian with an eye for the anomalies the professionals might miss. "The sound," Mitch told Gina over a diner counter. "The whole time I was there, all I heard was the sound of that engine idling. Perfect, quiet. But a mile up the road, by that blood, I noticed something else." He pulled a small, tarnished silver disc from his pocket. "I found this lodged in the gravel near where the bear was." It was an antique, miniature music box disc, the kind that played a single, repeating melody. The disc was bent, and 2 of its tiny prongs were broken. This is the key, Mitch said, pointing to the broken prongs. The blood was there because Alina, she wasn't just dropping the bear, she was throwing it, trying to get something out of the SUV and onto the highway where someone like me would find it. Gina immediately recognized the pattern. The music box disc was a physical cipher, a melody broken in two places, a message. She called the forensics team. The two broken prongs on the disc corresponded precisely to the note's A and C number. Gina tasked a linguist to cross-reference the note sequence AC number with known Vance's family data. It hit immediately. The notes were the opening interval of a classical piano piece frequently played by Alina's mother, a lullaby called The Silent Gallery. The Silent Gallery, Gina repeated, a chill running down her spine. Alina's art gallery in Chelsea. It's closed for renovation this week, perfect timing. Gina and a team of officers descended on the massive, empty gallery. It was a cavern of canvas and cold air. They found nothing in the storage rooms, the office, or the vault. But in Alina's private viewing room, beneath a tarp covering a sculpture, Gina found a small, custom-made wooden box, a music box, identical to the disc found by Mitch. This one was playing the full melody of the Silent Gallery. Inside the box was not a note, but a small USB drive. It contained a single, dense file, a 30-page document entitled The Ledger of the Silent Gallery. It wasn't about art. It was a detailed, encrypted list of names, dates, and transactions involving hundreds of millions of dollars. The names were all clients of Theo Vance's private equity firm. The transactions weren't investments. They were payouts for high-level political favors and information theft. Theo Vance, the stressed-out financier, wasn't just worried about Lex. He was the head of a massive insider trading ring. The acquisition deal Dr. Hayes mentioned was merely the final, massive wire transfer that would collapse the entire scheme. Alina was running the money exchange through her gallery, laundering billions through high-value art purchases. She was the financial brains. Theo was the front man. The ledger revealed a stunning truth. The ring had a total of 5 partners. The highest transaction, a $50 million payout, was logged to a partner codenamed PHNX. Gina immediately knew the name. Philip Hayes, Dr. Philip Hayes, Theo's worried, supportive friend. The syndicate wasn't a rival firm. It was the 5 partners themselves, the heads of the most powerful financial institutions in New York. They had been exposed not by the FBI, but by someone within their own system, someone with access to the money movement and the ability to disappear. Gina called for an immediate APB on Dr. Philip Hayes. But the most shocking detail was on the final page of the ledger, an entry dated 24 hours after the family disappeared. Vance assets 4 acquired, transfer to facility Sigma-7 initiated by EV. Alina Vance. Alina had coded the transfer herself. The Vances hadn't been abducted. They had disappeared on their own terms. They had triggered their own extraction. The twist, the family hadn't been running from the syndicate. They were the syndicate's most valuable assets, fleeing the imminent collapse of their criminal empire. The blood on the highway was a deliberate, false flag designed by Alina to frame their disappearance as an abduction and buy them time. The teddy bear and the music disc, that wasn't a cry for help. It was a final, smug message left for the police, a trail of breadcrumbs meant to waste days of investigation. Gina found Dr. Hayes, the PHNX, at his office, attempting to frantically scrub data from a massive server rack. "They're gone, aren't they?" Hayes said, dropping his hands. "Theo and Alina, they took the ledger." "They sold us out. Alina is the ledger doctor," Gina said, showing him the Vance Assets entry. "She booked the extraction herself. She's the leader. She left you to take the fall." Hayes's face went white. She couldn't have. She built the entire exit strategy, the shell companies, the safe houses. She always said, "We are a family first and last." That was her code. The family part was true, doctor. The loyalty to you was not. Hayes revealed the final piece of the puzzle, Facility Sigma-7, a private, secure airport hangar in upstate New York used for discreet private jet transfers. The Vances had secured a long-range jet capable of flying nonstop to the only country that wouldn't extradite on white-collar crime charges, Argentina. Gina and the state police arrived at facility Sigma-7 just as the sleek, private Gulfstream G650 was powering up its engines. A black van was pulling up to the jet's stair car. The Vance family emerged, Theo looking pale but determined, the children, Noah and Lily, wrapped in travel blankets clutching new toys. And Alina, her face a mask of controlled, chilling resolve. She wasn't bleeding. The small cut on her arm had been neatly bandaged. Gina shouted through a bullhorn, "Alina Vance, stop, you are surrounded." Alina ignored her. She ushered her children and husband onto the plane. She was seconds from climbing the staircar herself when her eyes locked onto the black van. The van's doors slid open, revealing not police but two figures in dark suits. They were the security detail Alina had hired to protect her flight, but they looked at her with cold hostility, guns drawn. The second twist, the money laundering scheme was run by the five partners. But Alina's true loyalty was to a different, far older organization, an ancient, hidden criminal network whose motto was, "The debt is always paid." Alina's extraction was not sanctioned by the syndicate. It was her own rogue escape plan, and the organization she was fleeing had just caught up to her. The black suits were not her security, they were the collectors. A gunfight erupted on the tarmac. Gina's officers, caught between the plane and the armed collectors, scrambled for cover. In the confusion, Alina, seeing her children trapped on the plane, made a choice. She didn't reach for her own hidden weapon. She ran straight for the staircar, screaming, "Noah, Lily." One of the collectors tracked her, firing a single, silenced shot. Alina fell, clutching her chest. Theo Vance, watching his wife fall, collapsed against the jet door in stunned grief. The children, witnessing the violence, were screaming. The collectors, realizing the plane and its valuable assets were compromised, quickly retreated in their van before the police could gain control. Gina rushed the plane. Alina Vance was critically wounded. As Gina applied pressure to the wound, Alina looked up at her, the mask of the art curator finally broken, revealing the terrified, loving mother beneath. "The children," she wheezed. "The teddy bear, it was Lily's." "We know," Gina said, tears welling up. "We'll get them, Alina." Tell them the music never stops," Alina whispered, her eyes fixing on the dark sky before she went limp. The Vance family was finally safe, not because they ran, but because Alina had sacrificed herself to buy them the final minutes they needed for the police to intervene. Theo, utterly broken, surrendered immediately, clutching his children. Theo Vance went to prison, and with him the entire syndicate collapsed, thanks to the ledger Alina had left behind. Noah and Lily were placed into protective custody, their trauma slowly healed by the love of their grandmother. Mitch Rourke, the trucker who found the bear, continued his route, a silent hero. He knew his only role was to be the witness. Gina Cortez solved the case, but she never forgot the chilling image of the empty SUV, the hot coffee, and the cold logic of a family running from a life of their own making. The family had disappeared, but the truck driver found the one thing they left behind. A mother's desperate, last act of love played out in the silence of the highway.